Usually around this time of year, I'll start making a video, and it will generally be an overview of the last year. And I've kept up this kind of tradition for the last couple of years, and over time I've added production quality and all that kind of stuff, but this year I thought I would do a little bit of a throwback to a 2016 one I made on another channel. Just talking. And it's something that we don't generally do a lot these days. It's usually small talk or the weather or how are you doing, how's life, how's work. But over the last year, so much has happened to me. And this isn't a sob story or something like that, because there is a point to me saying this. But this year, I became single for the first time in 5 years, having to readjust to me and figuring out who I am and what I want to do and how I want to progress in life and all that kind of stuff as a single individual rather than as a collective, as two people working together. And not only that, but of course, as some people already know, I lost someone very close to me this year as well. So there was a lot of readjusting to that as well and helping see my family through that. And these things, they're not easy to do. And when it comes to the end of the year, you have to end up recognizing that this is a new year without several people being very close to you. And that can be a very difficult thing that a lot of people experience and will experience throughout their life. So I thought, I may as well put my mind into words and see what flows. I've always been one to speak my mind and to try to figure out through my words that just flow from my mouth to understand some kind of process to this. And who knows, maybe the things I say will help others and to recognize and understand this. Now, it hasn't all been bad. I should note that. There has been a lot of good in this year as well. I started getting clients for my business. Twitch started taking off. YouTube started taking off. I got a Patreon supporter. I got money from clients. I got an actual legitimate business now. And through the struggle of over almost a decade of trying to figure out how to create this, I've just stumbled across it. And slowly over time, I'm building it up to the point where it can sustain me and my future endeavors. And with that, it's also come to the conclusion in myself that I know where I want to be in 5 years. I know some of the achievements that I want to have, not just financially, but career-wise and in life. I can honestly say that 2019 has been one of the most difficult years I've ever experienced. And to be fair, I know I will experience much worse years and much greater years. There's an expression that in order to propel yourself forward, you have to be pulled back, like an arrow. And life itself, you can only understand backwards. You can look back on the years and realize that there seemed to be an ebb and flow of things. Good, and then bad, then medium, then bad, then good. And while all of these things ebb and flow and sway, you can take lessons, you can take morals, you can take ideas and opportunities from your past, no matter how bitter or how successful you are. There are always lessons to learn from your own failures and your own shortcomings to others. And this last year, I've had to look very deep inside myself to the point where I didn't want to. I shut myself off from a lot of people and realized that I am strong. And I am fiercely independent and fiercely loyal to people as well that I feel deserve my loyalty. But I also love unconditionally. And while it takes a good amount of time to earn my trust and love, because it's something that I have to give, it's not something that can be forced, it's very easily taken away. It's very easy to break trust, or love for that matter. And it's also very difficult to rebuild and to heal. I thought that this year, if I just poured myself into my work, it would make things better, but the reality is we all have to face what we're dealing with. We all have to face the realities of life, no matter how difficult or dire the situation may be, but the fact of the matter is, it's always darkest just before the break of day. And as I'm going into the next year, I hope that I know that this next year will probably be one of the most productive and successful years in terms of business and personal relationships that I have ever had, because I have this whole new understanding of life, this whole new outlook on life, not for the bitter or for the nihilistic or the existential nihilistic views that I've had over the last several months, but a more productive outlet to it. Something that I've said to a lot of people over the years is life was never meant to be easy. I mean, if you think about it and you go back to our ancestors running around on the plains chasing gazelles and antelopes and picking berries to survive, they never really thought in the ways that we thought. Their ideas were on survival and reproduction and just generally staying alive. And a lot of people experience very similar things to that today, but not to the extent. And people in first world countries like myself, we are able to have this time to think, to actually think, to be bored, to not have something to do, to not have something to be productive about, to not do anything. That is a very rare thing in terms of all of humanity's existence. And yet, here we are doing that. Here you are, sitting down, listening to a video from the ramblings of some strange Irishman halfway across the planet, and yet, here you are, with free time in your hands, a roof over your head, food in your belly, not having to worry about survival, but rather figuring out how to thrive. Something that sticks with me through all of this is, if you have 10 quid in your pocket, $10, 10 euros, 10 whatever, and you have no debt, you're richer than the vast majority of people on the planet. Now think about that for a second. You are richer than the vast majority of people on the planet with 10 quid in your pocket. And while debts are on the rise all across the world, from college to medical to mortgages to cars, all that different stuff, we live in a consumer world where that is commonplace. We're more worried about having to look after our families, to look after our friends, to try to raise money for other people, to try and help other people. But rarely do we think about helping ourselves. Rarely do we look inwards. We only truly look inwards whenever we are forced to. And that's not healthy. Because when we look inwards towards those extremely difficult times, we forget that we are human and we are so critical of ourselves. When my uncle passed away, everyone around me was asking, what if I had gone there before? What if I should have been there before? I should have been there for him. Several times during that, I'm not proud to say, but I raised my voice to my family members and just said, don't. You shouldn't do that to yourself. Even though inwardly, I was doing that to myself. During that time of helping with preparing for the funeral, I was so focused on making sure everyone else was okay that I never thought to help myself. I never thought to say, sit down, take a breather, and process this. Because to me it was very cut and clear. There's so much that had to be done, and everyone else is grieving. They're in mourning. They're hurting. Just focus on everyone else. It wasn't until everyone left the actual funeral and I'm standing there by my uncle's grave and that I just broke down. That I decided and let myself to grieve. To allow myself to have some resemblance of feeling. That it finally clicked. Now I'm happy to say I did have a very good last memory of him, but at the same time, not many people get to experience that. And I know going into the new year, into the Christmas time, people are going to remember their lost loved ones through the years. Wishing things were different, wishing people were around longer, wishing that they had done more. And what I'm going to say to you right now is just quite clearly, don't. Don't beat yourself up over something that you cannot change. The inevitability of life is that it ends. But that doesn't mean the person's memory has to end. The things that they taught you, the things that you experienced with them, the things that you'll hold for the rest of your life. The good should stay with you. You should always remember it, cherish it, use it, and you should look after yourself. If someone truly cares about you, when they're gone, they don't want you to neglect yourself, to not take care of yourself. And yes, we all need to grieve, we all need to accept things and to come to terms with it. But that doesn't mean we should abuse ourselves. And a lot of people do that mentally, whether they've lost someone or not, whether they've had a bad breakup or whether they've lost their job, whether they've lost a kid or another family member, or they made a mistake and they hurt someone. The thing is, life keeps going until it doesn't. And we have such a short span of life to live. It's funny how when someone's life ends, you start to realize that depending on how much it affects you, you start to realize that life, it's a simple thing. Complex, but simple. It's not in the big achievements or the huge moments in life that truly matter. It's the little things. From the stories I heard about my uncle, it was always the little things that people said about him. From the little things that he would do to help out, or the words of wisdom, as it were, even though he had his own particular way of giving those words of wisdom. To the people around you, it's always the little things that they remember. How you did something a particular way, whether you were a bit eccentric about certain things or other things, the little things that you did for them. Or that they did for you, whether it was buying you the thing that you couldn't afford, or making you food every time you came in the door, to bringing you out to places you haven't seen before. The little talks and conversations about the future and the past. It's always the little memories. And yet, today we're all so focused on the next big thing. The next big upgrade to our phones or our lives, our new houses or our new cars, or even if we can't afford them. It's always about something new, something big, something exciting. Maybe they got the new promotion or the new career change, or maybe they had a kid, or maybe they got divorced or married, or whatever the case is. But when people look back at you, it won't be those things. Life is in the everyday, the mundane, the simple, ritualistic things that we do every single day to live, to just be. So I'd urge you, quite simply, to take a step back and ask yourself, what would you be remembered for? Would it be the great, massive things that you did whether it's at college or your job or at work, or maybe you did a big charity event, whatever the case is? Or would it just be the everyday little things that you did? Maybe you wrote a particular way, maybe you had a diary, maybe you cooked things on special occasions, maybe you were there for someone to listen to. Maybe they took you out to a particular spot every time that you met up. Maybe they had their coffee a certain way and you always found it funny. Maybe it was their tenacity or their stubbornness or their intelligence. Maybe it was the way that they could make you smile, they could joke about anything with you. Or maybe it was just simply the way they made you feel. Maybe they made you feel respected or understood. Maybe they were just a friend when you needed it. Again, life is a complex thing. And I've learned that very much over the last year. But it's also a simple thing. We're creatures of habit. That's all we are. But the question is, what habits define you? Is it your tenacity, your smarts, your arrogance, your courage, your ignorance, your naivety, your kindness, or your generosity? Your willingness to go out of the way, or your willingness to stay out of the way? If anything, this year has taught me a lot. And it was not easy, I'll admit, but at the same time I understand that a lot of people have it much harder than me. And while I'm not the happiest of what's happened this year, obviously, I'm grateful for the things that I learned, and I miss the things that I've lost. But I'm moving forward. And I hope that whatever anyone is going through this Christmas or this New Year or any years to come, if they ever watch this video, is that you move forward. That you build your life today. Because that's all we have. We don't have yesterday, as it's already passed, and we don't have tomorrow, because tomorrow never comes. It's always today. So with a bit of luck, a bit of courage, and a bit of stupidity, maybe today will be something different for you. Hopefully all of this made sense. It is a bit of a ramble, to be fair, but I've always found I spoke a bit easier whenever I'm just rambling. But with that being said, I wish you well. And hopefully, with a bit of luck and a bit of stupidity, next year will probably be the best year I've ever had. And I hope the same for you. That being said, I'm Sai, signing off. Have a good one.